Hello, and welcome back to the nostalgic podcast that allows us to relive some of the most memorable moments of the past. Something that we know many of us hold near and dear. Thank you for joining us again on Rewind Room. Great to have you guys. My name is Ramona, and I have with me my nostalgic co host and partner in crime, John.
How y'all doing, folks? So glad to be back here. How y'all hope everyone is doing good right now. Thankfully, is all is well on this end. Really quick before we get into this episode though, we would like to take a moment to acknowledge something that is very serious right now and something that's affecting the state of California right now. As I'm sure the majority of you know right now, Los Angeles is been going through some very tough times with the fires that are going on over there. And ever since I heard about this, it's been very it's been tough, especially being in Arizona, being so close. It makes it that it hits a lot more closer to home, especially because it's literally right there. And I just want everyone to know, our thoughts and minds are with the state of California right now, and we are hoping and praying that everyone out there is safe. If you're listening to this podcast and you're from California, just know we're thinking of you, and we are hoping that you are safe, and we are hoping that that this will eventually get contained. And it's very tragic right now, as a lot of very iconic places in LA are no longer there, and so we just we're just hoping all for the best. So please stay safe out there. But otherwise, back into it. I'm so excited for our second episode. We got a lot of love from the first episode, and I definitely think that we're on a good track right now, my friend. We're doing great.
It's exciting. It's something brand new, and it's something that, was well received, and we're here for it, and we're here for you guys. And obviously, we would love as much engagement as possible. So please feel free to like and comment and just sit down, relax, grab a drink, grab some cereal or something, and get
Hmm.
ready for episode two.
Water in
Because
my case.
exactly, no, me too. Because today we're diving into a theme that takes us all down memory lane. It's nostalgic firsts,
Yes.
something that we consider to be near and dear, considering our firsts are some pivotal moments in our lives um, that make up who we are, and we're here for it. We invited listeners to share their own first experiences on Instagram, so we'll be sharing those later with you as well. But yeah, my friend, I am so excited, John. Are you excited?
I am absolutely excited. I am ready to get into this. I think this is going to be great. The last time we mostly talked about kind of who we were. You guys got to know who we are, but now you're going to get to know us a little bit more now, and more in terms of what this show is about. And it's really going to be a lot of fun. So today, for you guys, we're going to go through some of our firsts. Some of the things, like the first movies we remember watching, maybe some of the first CDs we purchased, video games, stuff like that. We also have some of the first tech gadgets as well that we also messed with as well. Those could be anything ranging from video game consoles to computers to different servers and things like that. Maybe even the first time that we learned what the internet was. Although thankfully, my first experience was pretty okay. I know a lot of people's was could be a little jarring depending on what you were looking at, but hey, no judgment from my end. And then to wrap it all up, we will, as my co-host Ramona said, we will be taking a look at some of those answers you guys sent in on the Instagram for the question that we asked you, and then we will also be going through some core societal firsts and trivia that maybe we may not know, and kind of quiz each other. And feel free to also chime in on that. You can try and get the answers right as well. There's a bunch of room for any participation. And hey, if you guys get the answer right, either leave us a comment here on YouTube or send us a DM on the Instagram if you're listening on wherever you get your podcast from as well.
Yes, yes. And going off of that, we also have an email uploaded on our Instagram bio in
Yes.
case you want to message us about any business inquiries, or if you just want to say hi or send a nostalgic first that we discussed or went over on the podcast before. We'll be reading them throughout the episodes. So, say if you comment after this episode is posted, then it'll be on episode 3, and so on.
Absolutely,
Um,
yes.
so to get started, I'll have John introduce what we're going to be exploring first on our firsts.
Absolutely. So the first thing that we're going to be taking a look at on our first is kind of the first media experiences that we had. So, one of the things is, and I don't know about you, Ramona, media for me, was a massive part of what got me into nostalgia. And the reason I say that is because a lot of my nostalgia was built around movies, video games, television, CDs, and a couple of trends, and just little things like that. And I think, with how our society was, in the early 2000s, there was a lot, before we had the onslaught of social media, there was a lot more engaging with physical media, regardless if it was a DVD, whether it was a CD, video game, what have it. It was very hands on. So definitely a lot of that good stuff. So what about you? What were some of the first big media experiences you kind of had as well, just in general?
John, I would say that you were spot on in describing the physical media as basically an overtake of our childhoods. I mentioned in the first podcast that our generation, the late 90s, early 2000s, was sort of the last generation to be able to appreciate anything physical before it came into the cloud or into the streaming sphere, or
Very true.
into
Hmm.
the social media handheld mobile device thing. It
Yep.
was pretty much the last time that we could actually cherish having a CD player bump our lap and ruin the song. Even
Very
even
true.
those small inconveniences. So
Absolutely.
to answer your question, I would say everything that you said, VHS, vinyl, CDs, all of that,
For sure.
pretty much encompassed my childhood. I grew up in front of a TV, and I would say,
Likewise.
like I stated in the first episode, it was like PBS, many TV shows and movies and stuff like that. They were our babysitters, our
Absolutely.
parents, our friends, or this or that. So
Yeah, absolutely.
physical media definitely played a huge role in influencing the person that I am today, actually. And perfect segue into uh, us getting a little bit more descriptive of our first experiences. I wanted to ask you what the first movie was you remember watching.
That's a good question. I had to think about this one for a little bit, and the reason I had to think about it for a bit is because I remembered so many movies that I remember watching when I was younger, if you know what I mean. There's a lot of media that I remember consuming, and there's so many of them that I had to think, I had to really think hard. But when I really sat down and thought about it, I would have to say the very first movie I remember watching was The Sound of Music from 1965 with Julie Andrews, Christopher Plummer, and yeah, it's the very one of the very first movies that I watched. It was one of my mother's comfort movies when I was younger. So we had it on a lot. It's one of those movies. It has a bit of a runtime on it, and whatnot. And I think it was just one of those things where you when you've watched it so many times, you just gain more of a love for it and whatnot. So with the sound of I would say it was The Sound of Music was probably the first movie I remember watching.
Well, that's a great one. That's a fantastic movie.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Great ensemble, great music. It was revolutionary for the time too.
I don't know. I
Given
don't
the
know if
content.
for sure. I don't know if I should say this or not, but like I also had a crush on Liesel too. So like I mean,
Hey, that's nostalgic too. That could be a nostalgic first too, if anything.
yeah.
Like
Rest in peace, Charmian Carr. Rest in peace. Yeah, but no, that's just that was yeah, that was a big thing when I was young. But yeah. What about you? What was the first movie you remember watching?
Well, I want to preface my answer by saying that this is also a time for you guys to think about
Oh, thank
some
you.
pivotal moments in your lives, your first movie, your first this, your first that. This is definitely not just a conversation between John and I. This is something
Absolutely.
so that you guys can start reminiscing as well and going down memory lane. We are all hand in hand going down memory lane.
Absolutely. My bad
Um,
on jumping the gun on that, folks.
no worries. If anything, I was supposed to introduce it.
Yep.
But the first movie I remember watching, the memory comes from a place of sort of objective watching and
Okay.
not me specifically watching. Objective was the wrong word to use, but it's sort of like um, you picture yourself watching it, but you're not actually watching it.
Yeah, absolutely.
The first movie that I remember watching, I was around two or three. But the only reason why it's memorable to me is because I was watching it with my mother and how she reacted to that movie. It's sort of like I gained consciousness at that
Um,
time. And it was called Nicholas's Gift. It's a very
ooh,
underground movie that almost no one has heard of.
I was gonna say I've never heard of that movie before.
Surprisingly enough, Jamie Lee Curtis is the star in it, and it came out in 1998. So the
Really?
fact that it was like a straight to TV film that almost no one has heard
With
of
Jamie Lee
is
Curtis.
with Jamie Lee Curtis as the star, yeah, and it's basically about a young couple who lose their son on vacation, and he indirectly ends up the young son ends up indirectly saving a bunch of people with organ transplants. And
Oh,
the reason why I remember it, I don't remember the movie itself, but I remember my mother's reaction while we were watching the movie. It was
yeah.
pretty much the first time I saw my mother cry. And
Okay.
that's why it's so vivid in my head because not only am I watching a movie and I'm gaining consciousness of watching that movie,
Hmm.
but my mother is reacting in the most human way.
Hmm.
And it's just so nostalgic to think of movies in that way, like something that evokes so much emotion. And then you think back to a movie that evoked said emotion and you're like, holy heck, like what the heck?
Yeah, exactly. No, I hear you. I hear you 100% for sure. That's really cool. I've never heard of that movie. I have to go check that out. You say it's called Nicholas's what? I'm
Get
sorry. Nicholas's Gift.
Yeah. Now I haven't rewatched it since 1998. So I
Sure.
have to go back and actually watch it to see if uh it was worth the tears. But that's the earliest memory I have of film. I'm sure that there were movies played in the background in front of me, even younger than that. But um, yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah, no, for sure. That's really cool. I'm glad to hear, that your our first movies. Like I said, I'm gonna have to go check that movie out. And obviously The Sound of Music is a classic, so I'm really glad to hear that. But the next question that I have that we have here is the first movie we rented at a video shop. So for me personally, I I had two video shops that I went to. So the first was I don't know if you remember, Ramona, Hollywood Video. Hollywood Video was a big one, as well as we also had one up here, also known as Front Row Seat. Front Row Seat was a very popular it was a mom and pop video store here in wonderful Flagstaff, where I grew up. And basically they had every movie from A to Z. It had an old school feel to it. It had stars everywhere. It smelled like popcorn. It was an amazing, amazing place. But the very first movie that I rented was I don't know if any of you out there know of this, but I was big on something called beginner book video. And basically what those were, they took um, classic Dr. Seuss or P.D. Eastman books, and they put them on video, and they basically had somebody reading the story as they had graphic animation going from the book as well. And those were always fun because that was one of the ways I got introduced to reading as well. And so the version that I had two classic Dr. Seuss stories on it, and it was The Cat in the Hat Comes Back, as well as One Fish, Two Fish, Red Fish, Blue Fish. So it was a double feature. And the reason I remember that being the first that I rented is because it was the very first time I ever stepped into Hollywood Video because my parents were trying to rent the 2005 Johnny Cash film Walk the Line. So they got me something as well. And so that was the very first one that my parents rented. But the very first I actually rented on my own card when I was old enough to get a card was Spider-Man 3.
Let's go.
Yup. That was the very first movie I rented when I was finally able to get my own card. It was that front row seat. I remember it just come out. I did martial arts, which my martial arts dojo was right next to the front row seat. So often if I had time before or after, I was in front row seat just browsing. They had VHS tapes in there, they had DVDs, they had video games, they had everything. And so I remember, yeah, I went to the wall and I said, "This is what I want to rent," and I grabbed a copy of Spider-Man 3
This is something we're going to touch upon later in another episode,
for sure.
video shops and whatnot. But holy cow, the feeling of leaving school on a Friday night or waking up on a Saturday morning, knowing that later that day you're probably going to pick up a pizza and go pick out a movie and just,
Oh, bring
oh
that trend
man,
back. Bring that
bring
trend
that
back.
back.
I don't care.
Bring
I
it
don't.
back.
You can do it with Netflix. Come on, guys. Like you can easily go get a pizza or something and then choose something on Netflix and watch it.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. But nothing beats, and I'm sorry, I'm sorry. I love streaming. It's so convenient. I love it, but nothing beats, opening up your wallet, getting out your little Blockbuster or Hollywood
Oh, I
video,
hear
or in
you.
your case, your mom and pop shop card, picking out a movie or two, paying your $3 fee, getting some candy right there, maybe even
Yeah.
seeing a friend from school earlier that day,
Yep.
going to the same place, picking out a nothing beats that.
Oh, nothing
Nothing
beats it.
beats that.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. No, I agree with you 100%. I
Um,
think, yeah,
Unfortunately, my memory is not as clear as yours when it comes to this specific question.
it's all good.
Um, to be completely honest, I probably rented something Disney related,
Oh, sure.
probably like the Cheetah Girls or something like that.
Cheetah
When it,
Girls.
yeah,
Let's
oh, I was
go.
obsessed when I
Let's
was a kid.
go. Cheetah
For
Girls.
some anything Disney Channel, Max
Sure.
Keeble's Big Move, Cheetah Girls, any of that, I was on it. A Disney Channel original movie, I was on it.
Okay.
But
Okay.
it had to have been something like that because, to be completely honest, and that was VHS.
Yeah.
I only have memories of years after when I was still renting movies, but in the DVD era when DVDs started,
Oh,
picking
yeah,
up.
yeah, yeah. Okay.
VHS is when I was a young child. I barely remember, so I would have to say something Disney related.
Absolutely. No, I hear you right there. Weirdly enough, I was not the biggest Disney person, but I was big on
Mm.
like Disney movies, if that makes sense.
Oh
So
yeah,
so I
no,
watched
absolutely.
I watched them all. I watched, Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast, Sleeping Beauty, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, a lot of those kind of movies as well. So definitely good stuff. That's really cool though.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that that was your first. That's really cool.
I think something
Hey,
along those lines. I
hey,
also
it's
had
all
a
good.
like on the last episode I alluded to my grandfather having a pretty good collection of his own. So
Right,
if
I do
anything, he
remember.
was he was probably the first I rented from.
Fair, fair, fair. Makes sense.
Um but on to our next prompt, I wanted to
Yes,
ask
absolutely.
you what your first rated R movie experience was. Um
Ye-
I'll let you answer and then I'll answer.
Are you sure? Okay, fine. Okay,
Yeah,
fine.
yeah, please, please.
Okay, sounds good. Sounds good. So the very first R-rated movie experience I ever had. So here's the thing. Occasionally I would see R-rated movies that came on television, but they were always the edited for television, if that makes sense. So yeah, I would see snippets of like Terminator, I would see snippets of, popular, like Die Hard, Lethal Weapon, those kind of movies and whatnot, but they always were edited for television, so I never saw the more R-rated moments. But the
Oh,
very
okay.
first R film that I saw, probably unedited, was a World War II movie from 2002 called The Pianist. And that
Oh, The
is,
Pianist. Yes, yes,
yes,
yes. That's a beautiful film.
it's a
Yes.
wonderful movie. Yeah.
Yes.
Directed by Roman Polanski, who obviously, but I mean, he's a good filmmaker, but obviously,
He was also, to be fair, he wasn't the only one making the movie.
that's true. He wasn't. I'm just putting that out there.
Yeah.
But no, that is very true. Adrian Brody in that film did
Fantastic, man. Yes.
fantastic. I mean, with what he had to go through. But no, I remember that was the very first R-rated movie I watched because it was around the time I think I was 12 or 11, somewhere in there, and my parents sat and watched it with me because, for those of you who don't know, I am Jewish myself, and so that I obviously that's a film that hits pretty close to home. Even though I never had any family involved in the Holocaust or anything, it's still a bit of history that they wanted me to understandably learn. And so it came on. I don't know if you remember the channel IFC. It's like an
Oh yeah,
independent, yeah,
absolutely.
yeah. It would come on IFC occasionally because it was independently made, and then overseas, I think Universal picked up the rights here in the
Mm,
U.S. because I think it was a French U.S. joint, if that makes sense.
I see. Okay.
Because Roman, he can't enter the country, so obviously he made it over in Europe, and he did an amazing job. It was a really good movie, and whatnot. But yeah, I remember that was the very first time I watched an uncensored rated R film. So that was my first experience. So yeah, what was your experience?
So I was actually about to ask
Oh
you,
yeah, what's up?
going off of your response,
Yes,
what was the emotion? Because I know for a fact I felt some type of way knowing that
sure.
I was watching a rated R movie when I knew I was watching
Mm.
one. Did you feel mature? Did you feel like you had, hit a milestone in your childhood life when you were finally able to watch what at one point was, the unseen or the unknown? Because of age, obviously.
That's a great question. Yeah, I would say I did a little bit, especially with a movie like that, because with watching any other R-rated film, like let's say you're watching Terminator or you're watching The Godfather or you're watching a movie in that realm, these are movies that are classics. And like after a while, sometimes I think, you don't really think of it necessarily as an R-rated film, but I think with The Pianist for sure I did because I mean, it makes you feel like, my family trusts me enough to be able to watch and handle what this film is about to offer, especially because it's about something that really happened, and
Absolutely.
unfortunately something that happened under 100 years ago, and
Yeah.
and whatnot. So I definitely did feel, I definitely 100% I felt like, hey, they trust me enough to watch this movie, so what else, where do I really go from here? It's kind of like, I'm about to watch something that really happened. I'm about to get really into it. So yeah, I definitely felt like I was mature, and yeah.
Yeah, I would say the same. So I had two separate experiences with the first when it comes to rated R movies.
All right.
I watched them unsupervised when I was around the age of like two. I'm not
Okay.
kidding, two or three.
Wow. Okay. So you
Mostly
beat me to it.
because and
Okay.
and and then I'll start with the story right now. I don't want you to judge my
Okay.
parents.
Hey, I'm
Um,
no judgment here.
and the second time was with my parents, so that
Okay.
was supervised. So the
Okay. Cool.
first
Cool.
one, my parents worked, both of
Sure.
them,
Okay.
so I was left with aunts and grandparents who did not speak English.
Okay.
So with the language barrier, obviously they the way that they consume media is different than the United States.
Oh, sure.
And if you have a movie that looks childish and you don't know what is going on, you're going to assume it's childish. So
Oh, of course.
I can't blame them. The first film that I watched unsupervised around the year 2000 was the film Child's Play.
Okay.
And that's
Okay.
the notorious horror film from 1988 with Chucky
Sure.
the doll.
Oh yeah.
And you can only imagine the mix up that my aunt had. She sat me in front of the TV and she said, "Hey, it's a little," and she said this in Spanish. She said,
Sure.
Es una película de un muñeco, which
Okay.
means it's a movie about a doll.
Okay.
So, as a kid, you're like, oh, okay, this is a movie about a doll.
Mhm.
It scarred me. I had
I
nightmares
don't
for
blame
years
you.
after that.
I don't blame you.
And, I can't blame her, but that
Oh,
was
sure.
pretty much the first introduction I had to a rated R movie.
Okay.
Now,
Okay.
supervised
Mhm.
with my mom's knowledge, my dad does not watch movies. I don't think he's ever finished a movie in his life. He
Fair.
doesn't
Okay.
have the attention span for it.
Sure.
But
Sure.
my mother loves movies. Pretty much her entire life revolves around movies.
All right.
So she was definitely, the go-getter when it came to let's go see that movie that just came out. Let's go buy that DVD or VHS that just, was released at
All right, all right.
Blockbuster or whatever.
Yeah, yeah. That's cool.
So with her, the first rated R movie I watched was 2004's Man on Fire by Tony Scott,
Oh, that's a great
Top Gun
movie.
guy. Oh yeah,
Yeah,
one of the best
that's a
movies
great movie.
with Denzel Washington and Dakota Fanning. It's a
Yep.
fantastic movie, but it's pretty much the first movie I also cried in because of how heavy the content
Oh,
was,
I, I,
with
I get,
hitmans, cartels, this and that.
yeah. No, for
And
sure. I get the feels with that one too.
yeah, and that came out in 2004. So I was born in 1996. So I was
Sure.
8 years old. I had these
Mhm.
emotions rushing through my body of, hey, this is the first rated R movie that my mom knows I'm watching. Like we're all here
Mhm.
together. Like this is so special. And then being thrown into adult themes, it was just I was in another world. I can't even explain to you how I felt, but I to this day I still sort of feel the same lingering feelings. It's nostalgia, but for the most part, that's what it is.
Oh wow, that's awesome. That is really cool. Man on Fire, that's a good one too. I mean that's especially to kind of get into and whatnot. You know what's weird? And just real quick before we continue with this, I gotta ask you. And if you guys have any input on this, please send us a DM on the Instagram as well. But um, did you ever feel that like okay? Obviously, when you're young, a movie like Child's Play absolutely is going to scar you. I mean, because it's about a
Mhm.
doll that's literally a killer. But when you grow up, did it feel like when you went back and watched it? I'm sure you went back and watched it by now.
I watch it
Yeah,
every
yeah.
year for Halloween.
Oh, nice. My question, does it feel like it's, for lack of a better term, a lot more tame than you remember it now? Like, and what I mean by that is,
100%.
yeah, because like I mean, especially for an R-rated feature, you don't see a whole lot. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, it's more kind of on the psychological. I mean, there are some gory moments, but you know what I'm saying. Compared to like, a movie like Texas Chainsaw Massacre or
Well,
even
because I
something
was
like that.
introduced to films like that so
Yeah.
early, even Texas Chainsaw Massacre, my sensibilities are
Oh,
just
the
so,
OG
and
is tame.
sensitivities.
Yeah.
Oh, the OG isn't even a horror movie.
It's
Let's
not
be
even a horror
honest.
movie. No, no, I
Let's
was
be
talking.
honest.
Sorry, I should have been more descriptive. The
Are you talking about
remake,
2003,
the
2004,
2003 remake.
the one
Yeah, that.
produced by
Yeah,
Michael Bay?
yeah, yeah, yeah. That one. That because those
Oh, that
ones
one's
were
a
far
great
more.
movie. But
Those ones are far
even
more
then,
gorier.
even then, I watched that when it came out too, and it came
Okay.
out in like 2003, 2004. So I was around the same age. I was around like 8. So I've been just watching horror movies since I can walk and talk.
Okay.
And I think because of that, everything for the most part is tame, unless we're talking about like Mondo films or whatever, which we
Oh,
will
Mondo
touch
films.
upon in future
Yeah,
episodes.
yeah, yeah. Absolutely, for
But
sure.
I would say for the most part, everything I watch, depending on the content, specifically horror, is pretty tame to me, just because I was
Likewise.
desensitized at such an early age.
Same, same. I gotta say the same, and I didn't watch a whole lot of horror movies when I was younger, but I think as I started watching more, I definitely started to get more desensitized, and especially as I started to even watch, more violent films. So like, Tarantino
Oh
and
yeah.
Robert Rodriguez and,
Mm-hmm.
some of those directors that usually tend to go toward more the violent side. I think now violence doesn't bother me at all really in movies.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, so I know that might sound a little strange to some of you, but like the more you do consume this type of media, the more you become desensitized a little bit. Doesn't mean we don't have emotions, obviously, but
No.
still, no, no, definitely affects us. But anyways, let's keep trucking. So I guess the next one that I have as well is the first CD or album that we purchased. I can say for me, so here's the thing. When it comes to CDs and stuff, I purchased so many of them when I was young.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, a lot of them haven't survived, unfortunately,
Oof.
because I'm not gonna say what I was, but dumb, my dumb butt decided to, not take care of a lot of things, as I mentioned in the
You
last
were a
episode.
child.
But
You were a
I,
child.
I mean, I was a child, but
Give
like
yourself a break.
I know I was a child, but like still and whatnot. But I had a lot of CDs that I bought. But the first one I can remember was it was a compilation of popular 80s songs. It was called Only Dance, and it was
Did that
between.
have Funky Town?
It did not.
Oh,
unfortunately.
because I had a similar CD that had Funky Town on it.
For sure, for
So
sure. I'll have to
funny.
send I'll have to
I think it was 80s disco.
yeah, I'll have to send you the photo of what it looks like, and maybe I'll throw it up on the Instagram as well so then you all
Mm.
can see what it was. But it was a compilation between the years 1980 and 1984, excuse me, sorry. It was between those years, and the main reason I got it is because when I was young, I'm a massive baseball fan. So I grew up watching a lot of Diamondbacks games because, Arizona being the state that I'm in, the Diamondbacks are big here. And one of the commercials that would air was for the it's called Arizona Public Service. They are the electric company that powers a lot of houses here in the state of Arizona. And a lot of their commercials in the early 2000s were incredibly engaging. And one of them had the Devo song Whip It in the background while a blender's making a strawberry shake. And
Whip it real good. That one.
yeah,
Ah,
where
yeah, yeah.
into shape, shape it up, get straight. That song, from the 80s. Yeah, whip it good. Yeah, that was the song I wanted, and it was so hard to find because this was the era before Spotify. This was the era before you had an iPods even, so you had to buy CDs. And the thing is, it's not like today where you can look up samples of songs. You kind of had to like know the song you wanted to get.
Yeah,
You
and,
know.
and at the time, services like eBay and Amazon were still, finding their footing and whatnot. So
Yep.
you had to go to every Walmart, every Target, every Circuit City, Radio Shack, Best Buy to see if they had this the specific CD that you wanted too.
Exactly. And the thing is that it was hard finding a Devo CD at the time because in the early 2000s, I mean, even though Devo were huge in the 80s and that was their biggest song, and whatnot, like, they didn't really carry over after Whip It, I mean, they weren't a one-hit wonder, but they definitely didn't carry on the massive success after that. And so it was tough to find it, but finally when we found it, it was that compilation. It also had a lot of other cool artists on there. I got exposed to Rick James, I got exposed to the Talking Heads, Herbie Hancock, the Gap Band, Cool in the Gang, The Fix, Ray Parker Jr. It wasn't Ghostbusters, unfortunately, but yeah. So it was really cool. It was really cool. So definitely, that was the very first memory I have of getting a CD.
Oh, that's awesome. So my mom and dad love listening to music, so they had
Sure.
been collecting CDs for a while.
Hmm.
The first CD that I purchased with my parents' money,
Oops.
think of it like here's $10, go buy whatever you want. That's what
Sure.
I mean.
Yeah.
So the first CD I purchased with my own money in that way would be the SpongeBob movie soundtrack from 2004.
Oh
And
wow.
mostly because I loved the Ween song Ocean Man. And I was
Oh, that's
obsessed with it.
cool.
I remember it was a
Yeah.
rainy day. I was in the parking lot. I said to my mom, listen, I'm just going to be in and out really quick. It
Mhm.
was at the time where you could just leave your kid and they could go into the store.
Oh yeah.
Nowadays you can't really do that. And I just remember, you'd walk by the entertainment section and then the jewelry section or the this and the
Yep.
that. And you're
Hmm.
just a kid, enamored by everything. That was the first one I bought with my parents' money. Now,
Okay.
with my own money that I either did chores for or something,
Mhm.
was the Phrase first album, How to Save a Life, released in 2005.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I've never
And
listened to that, but I know
so
what you're talking about.
it's so random,
Yeah.
on the radio, the How to Save a Life and the cable car song, they were just on repeat, on repeat.
Okay.
And originally, I was going to go to Target to get a CD by an artist called JoJo. She's a
Hmm.
young female pop artist.
Yeah.
The I think it's Hey Now, run of you and me, something
Yeah,
like
yeah,
that.
yeah,
Something
yeah.
very
Okay,
poppy.
okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I see the Phrase album, and I recognized the song, but the cover art was really cool. It was like a little light bulb.
Yeah.
And I thought, you know what? I'd rather waste my money on this light bulb. So I got
Fair.
the CD because of the light bulb cover art and not because of the
Yeah.
music.
Okay.
So so that just shows you my purchasing habits.
Fair, fair. I mean, hey, that's part of the marketing strategy. They make the cover look as enticing and be like, "Hey, buy me."
I'm like an 8/9 year old. What do I know?
Exactly. No, 100%. I hear you. I hear you for sure. Hey, when I purchased Michael Jackson's Thriller, I literally purchased it because the cover art looked cool. I mean, I know it's just Michael laying there on the cover, but really that's the reason I bought it. I knew nothing of Michael Jackson at the time either. And I know that sounds crazy. I mean, being the king of pop, but no, I didn't know anything about him. And then I listened to it and I'm like, this
Oh,
dude
I
is
get it.
awesome.
I get it.
Yeah, I'm like, this dude is awesome.
Uh,
Yeah, so no, yeah, it was
that's some
crazy.
good stuff.
It
Good
was
stuff. Good
very good
stuff.
stuff. Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Now, this is a perfect segue because we're
Sure.
talking about our first CDs/albums. Now,
Yes.
do you mind telling me your first explicit CD purchase
I don't know. I'm about to
or
incriminate
gift?
myself. No, I'm just kidding. Um, no, it's all good.
FBI.
Yeah, right. I'm gonna get the FBI knocking at my door because I purchased an explicit CD at a young age. No, I'm kidding. But no, honestly, I didn't purchase a lot of explicit CDs because by the time I got to the age where I could listen to explicit music, I was already, they were already churning out things like Spotify, Apple, and those streaming platforms. So I listened to a lot more of that on there. But explicit CD wise, I think the one I can remember, and this is going to sound really interesting. It was a Pink Floyd album actually. Because Pink Floyd was at times could be very outspoken, especially Roger Waters. And oftentimes, he would not hold back about certain things on certain ones. And it was the Pink Floyd album, The Final Cut, which came out
Okay.
right after The Wall came out, and some even consider it like an epilogue to The Wall. And there's a song on there called Not Now John, and it actually starts with F all that, we gotta get on with these. And you have the whole chorus in the background going, F all that, like in high voices
Gotcha.
and whatnot.
Okay.
And the CD
Okay.
was not marked as explicit because this was before the whole revolt and before the whole thing that happened with Purple Rain by Prince, and before
Gotcha.
the music industry was having to actually put on their albums, parental advisory explicit content.
At least they didn't follow the footsteps of their film predecessors with doing any Hays codes or whatnot.
Yeah, I'm
Um,
thankful for that for sure.
it's funny that you say that, especially as a child, you wouldn't expect someone born in the late 90s, early 2000s, their first explicit CD to be a Pink Floyd one, but
For sure.
you hear something new every day.
Absolutely, yeah, no, for sure. It's like I'm so in the backlog when it comes to music, rock and roll. I'm huge on all of that kind of stuff, and so that's why a lot of my picks you're gonna hear are from like in the 20th century.
No, absolutely, and that's one of the reasons why we're also such good friends. We can
Absolutely,
reminisce about the things that we love and that made us, but also presently listen to and appreciate the things that we love because we still love them.
oh yeah, for
Not
sure.
just for show or for the podcast. We do it because we genuinely love it.
Dark Side of the Moon is my all-time favorite album, so that goes to show you where
Mm.
I'm still standing.
No, yeah, Dark Side of the Moon is a fantastic album. I prefer Wish You Were Here, but
Fair,
it's
fair, fair.
definitely a fantastic album. Um, as for my first explicit CD purchase, I
Mhm.
actually didn't purchase my first CD.
Okay.
That was explicit. I was handed a free promotional mixtape from a Las Vegas rapper at
Oh,
the
okay.
age of like 9. And I was walking down the strip with my family, and he's, handing out CDs. And it was the first time that I saw the explicit mark on the
Hmm.
bottom, either left or right of the CD case.
Hmm.
And I was like, oh, this is awesome. Like, I'm an adult now. I can listen to adult music because I was handed one by an adult.
Hmm.
I didn't listen to it because I didn't have a CD player at the time. But the first explicit CD that I purchased was James Blunt's Back to Bedlam from 2004.
All right.
And I purchased that not knowing it was explicit. I purchased it with my mother, and she didn't know it was explicit
It
either.
didn't have the
Uh,
warning like on the
it
CD.
absolutely did. It absolutely
So you
did.
just
But I
overlooked
don't,
it.
it could have been that, like, she was busy
Yeah.
doing her own thing, and I, thought it was maybe the barcode or something like that. But it's safe to say that I was very surprised when I listened to the song because my favorite song on there,
Hmm.
Beautiful or something like that,
Yeah.
the You're Beautiful, that one,
Okay.
uh,
Okay. Now I know what you're talking about. Okay.
a verse I think it's the chorus actually. Oh no, no, it's a verse. He says, "I saw you and you were flying high," and I like
Okay,
that lyric. And
sure.
when the song came on, "Flying" was just the edited radio version, and I didn't know that. It's actually the F word. And I was
Nah.
about to sing it, and then the F word just comes blaring in my headphones, and I felt dirty.
Did
I
you
felt
actually
I
say it?
No, I didn't. But hearing it, I
Oh,
felt dirty.
okay,
I was
okay.
like, what in the heck is this? Like, why this isn't the song. The song has
Yeah,
flying in it. Like it's
yeah, yeah,
flying. And it blew my mind to find out that an explicit version has explicit language, hence the reason why it's
yeah.
explicit, you know?
That's
So
funny, and that changes the context of the song as well.
100%. 100%. You know, you're a kid and you're over here like, oh, the person that I love is flying in the air somewhere mentally. Nope, they're just very inebriated.
Oh, 100%.
Oh gosh, yeah,
Yes.
memories, memories. And I just wanted to take a moment to
Mhm.
remind you guys to also think about your
Absolutely.
first movies, first video shop experiences,
Hmm.
first rated R movies, things like that. Because at the end of the day, like I said earlier, they're what make us us right now. They're what brought
For
us
sure.
here to this point in time.
Oh, 100%. I absolutely agree with that. Yeah, and hey, let us know, DM us on Instagram, hit us up, send us an email. Yeah, let us know. We'd love to know your guys's first as well. So,
Absolutely, I'd like to consider us very approachable.
I try. I try. I mean, depends on the mood I'm in.
Depends on the day and the mood and the time
Exactly,
and what I've
exactly.
eaten.
100%. No, but most of the time I'm chill, guys. I promise. I'm chill. I'm chill. But anyways, to get back on it, the next question that we have here for our first is this is a big one, and this is going to be a real big retro one for us is what was the first video game that we played? And to tell you the truth, the very first console I owned was a Nintendo Wii. So the very first
2006 is Nintendo Wii.
that's correct. Yeah, yeah. And after I got the Wii, first game I played on it, of course, was Wii Sports because every Wii came with a copy of Wii Sports, and that was the most fun that I ever had, I'm realizing, when I was playing, I was like, man, this is not like any other console I've ever played on because I played on, my buddy's PS2, I played on my buddy's Xbox, and those were the video games I was used to, and now I'm playing the Wii, and I'm like, this is different, and it was really cool. And Wii Sports, was so interactive, which is what I loved about it. And Wii was marketed as that console that was like, will help you stay moving. So you're not just sitting there
Get off the
doing
couch.
doing this number, get
Yeah.
off the couch. And that was really what made the Wii a game changer. So yeah, probably Wii Sports. And then my parents also brought me a copy of Wii Music as well. That was always fun to mess around with.
Ooh, you know, Wii Sports is one of those. Wii Sports and Wii Play are one of the are two
Yes.
of those video games that I think were in everyone's living room at the time, especially
Oh
during
yeah.
parties or get-togethers, you know. Wii
Hmm.
Sports, everyone bowling, everyone playing tennis. Oh yeah, I think that
Hmm.
literally took over Western culture for a good year and a
It
half to
did.
2 years.
Absolutely.
Especially when Guitar Hero and Rock Band started working with Wii.
Oh, yes.
Then
And
you
that was
then you would
also huge in my
have
house. The party game.
exactly you had it was the party game, and then you had Just Dance, and the Wii was revolutionary when it came
Yep.
to sort of making games communal, bringing them back
Ab
to
yes.
unify the
Yes.
family.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely. 100% agree with you there.
Now my first console was actually the PS1.
PlayStation 1.
um
Heck yeah. Okay.
yeah, so the first video game that I owned and played on my own console was
Yep.
SpongeBob Super Sponge from 2001.
Okay.
But the first video game I played that wasn't my own was Banjo Kazooie and actually Mario Party on the N64.
Oh, there you go.
During the summertime when I was young, I would go to a daycare
Hmm.
that also had some daily learning activities.
Sure.
And when you finished your learning activities, you could go have some free time. And I
Yep.
actually made friends with the manager's son, and he was allowed to like pick one or two people every day to play video games with him. I don't know. They
Okay.
monopolized free time there.
Sure.
But I was always his pick because we were really good friends. I was nice to him. He was nice to me. You know, we were
Yeah.
like a bunch of 6, 7 year olds. So we're getting along.
Yeah.
So every summer, he and I would play Banjo Kazooie and Mario Party on the N64. And I've actually to this day never owned one, but I would like to
Fair.
own one day.
Yeah, likewise. I never owned a N64 as well, or a GameCube, something I would love to get on as well. But
Hmm.
yeah, no, that definitely a lot of, really interesting, stuff there. I think the first video game I remember playing that wasn't my own was Halo Combat Evolved.
Ooh, I need to get into the Halos.
Yes, yes, Halo
I
Combat
need an
Evolved.
Xbox first.
Yeah, Xbox. That's the only thing is that they only made that exclusively to Xbox. But I can see why they,
Yeah,
they made that exclusively to Xbox. But that was the
it's
first one I
smart.
played. Yeah, it was the first video game I played, not of my own. And yeah, I wasn't technically supposed to be playing it because it was a mature game. But hey, Halo's not that bad.
I am an avid fan of the Rooster Teeth web series Red versus Blue, so I have some idea
Oh,
of.
okay, yeah. Yeah, for sure. Well, we got to hook you up with Halo. We got to hook you up with
I
Halo one
know, I
day,
know.
for sure.
Um, so on to our next question,
Yep.
John. What was your first vinyl record purchase? And I know that you're huge on vinyl collecting and LP. Anything the analog way is your
Mhm.
preference. So, do you
1000%.
mind telling us what your first purchase was?
My first purchase of a vinyl record. So here's the thing. My mother owned a lot of vinyl because she came from the era where vinyl was huge. And so obviously, when vinyl with having somebody who's owned a bunch of vinyls, especially one of them being the Beatles Rubber Soul, an original 65 copy of that, that was
Wow.
pretty impressive. And I mean, it's a Capitol edition, so I'll talk about this probably on a future episode, but just long story short, Capitol rearranged a lot of the Beatles albums and stripped tracks from different albums, so it wasn't the same as the UK versions that are more of the standard now. But basically,
That is
um,
awesome, though. That is
that
not
form
a lot of people can say that.
absolutely. And to stick with Paul McCartney, that's actually funny enough. The very first album I ever purchased was Venus and Mars by Paul McCartney and Wings. That was the
Wow.
very first. That was a very first album I remember purchasing, and I remember I was at Bookman's. Bookman's is a local trade-in, almost like thrift store for media. So, records, comic books, CDs, DVDs, video games, and of course books. And I was there and I was looking through a lot of them, and I saw that Venus and Mars was sitting there, and I'm not gonna say it's one of my favorites, but it was just, I recognize the name. Of course, I know who Wings are. I know who Paul McCartney is, one of my favorite musicians of all time. And I look at it and I'm like, I really like this. It's cool. And I had a really old school, like just one of those almost like a Crosley type record players. And so
Oh,
my
I still have
mom,
a Crossley.
oh, nice. And then my mother picked up said, hey, it's your money. If you want to buy it, go for it. So I bought it. I listened to it. But now I have an Audio Technica as my turntable. Audio Technica LP 120 is my new
Very
turntable.
nice.
So that was the first record I ever bought. What about you, Ramona?
I for some reason I can't remember.
Okay.
It would have to be probably The Doors. I'm a huge Doors
Oh, good
fan,
one, good one, good
so
one.
it most likely was something from The Doors.
Mhm.
Just because I started collecting vinyl a little bit later in life. I started
Sure.
collecting when I was like 14, 15. So it's
Yeah.
not like I was grandfathered in with a collection or anything because
Yeah.
my no one in my family that was alive at the time collected vinyl to give me vinyl.
Sure.
So I didn't really know where to start. So I figured I might as well just buy something that I like. And I did.
There you go.
I bought, I'm sure it was a Doors album. I'm almost positive it was a Doors album, but yeah.
That's cool. Yeah, no, I love the Doors as well. I mean, the very first Doors album I purchased was their debut. I remember finding that at Bookman's and to
Oh, yeah.
see, yeah,
Yep.
that great album. I mean, shoot, I actually consider that to be pinnacle Doors. It's like, because don't get me wrong, everything
$100.
they did a lot of good stuff afterwards, but definitely they were kind of, they were kind of going this way, and then with the loss of Jim Morrison, even so,
Yeah.
and whatnot.
Yeah.
But still great stuff. Absolutely.
No, absolutely. And I saw, funny enough, an original pressing of the debut album at Amoeba Records in LA, actually, and it was going upwards of like $300 to $400, which in my opinion is still very low.
Yeah, 100%.
But I just had a 1990s repressing or something like that.
1000%.
So it's not worth anything other than sentimental value.
Hey, record's a record at the end of the day. So, I mean, the fact that you have it on vinyl is just even cooler.
Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. So, to move to probably what looks like our last of our first media experiences, this is going to be the first trend that you participate in. Now, this one necessarily wasn't necessarily media related, but it was media related, and I'm going to explain why here in a second. So, the very first trend that I was big on was probably you know this show obviously very big. I was Matt big into when I was in elementary school, Yu-Gi-Oh, the TV show, and
Yu-Gi-Oh!
yeah, Yu-Gi-Oh, yeah, absolutely. So Yu-Gi-Oh was like the first like anime that I actually watched. I know some people there's a debate about that, but to me it's an anime. It's a children's anime. I'll put it that
It
way.
absolutely is. It absolutely is.
Yeah, and so the very first media I participated trend was the Yu-Gi-Oh trading card game because
Oh, yep.
that was huge around the time. I had so many cards. The one that I regret getting rid of was my English edition of my three Blue Eyes White Dragons. I don't know why
Oh
I got rid of
no.
those. So all I have now is my Spanish edition of that card, and that's one I won't get rid of. But
You know,
um, yeah.
growing up, uh I had Kaiba's deck, so I did
Okay,
have
yeah, 100%.
I did have Seto's deck, but the deck that I preferred was Yami Yugi's. As you know, I
Oh
had
yeah.
to collect the Exodia cards. I just had to.
And especially in that
Um,
first booster pack, in that first pack, the Yugi pack, it had all five Exodia cards.
mm, oh my gosh, brings me back. I still have my Yu-Gi-Oh cards. They're in a binder
Yep.
somewhere, but
Exodia obliterate.
oh my gosh, memory lane. Funny enough, just a little
Mhm.
tangent story.
Yep.
The first time I wanted to buy Yu-Gi-Oh cards, obviously as a kid, you don't have any money, so
Yeah.
I asked my mother to do it, and I was the
Really?
messenger. So I didn't go to the store with her.
Excuse me.
So she was the sweetest thing, I kept
Yeah.
bothering her about getting Yu-Gi-Oh cards. I said, "Mom, please, I want like everyone had like I love Yu-Gi-Oh. I love the show. I loved season one. Like I want to read season zero. Like I
Yep.
want to like be everything Yu-Gi-Oh. I had the
Hmm.
talisman. I was Yu-Gi-Oh for 2 years in a row
Heck
for
yeah.
Halloween.
Okay. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
was obsessed, and I didn't have any Yu-Gi-Oh cards.
Uh-huh.
And my mom finally gave in, and she goes to Walmart, and I'm like anticipating, the opening of the bag and getting the cards and stuff. And my mom comes home. She comes to my room. She's like, "Oh, it took me a while to find these, but here they are." Heck yeah! And I open them and they're playing cards in Yu-Gi-Oh form. So like a deck
Oh,
of cards,
like a
but
deck of
like,
regular playing cards. Yeah. Yeah.
but rather than like hearts, it's like Exodia and stuff, and which now
That's
I would assume is
dope.
very rare. But as a kid, I was like, no, mom, these are not Yu-Gi-Oh cards. They're cards with Yu-Gi-Oh, but they're not Yu-Gi-Oh cards. And
Oh man.
explaining it to her was just so
I would have
difficult.
been so jacked to have that
I
though.
was
That's so cool.
Well, now looking back in
Yeah.
hindsight, I wish I would have been fine with those and kept those because none of my cards are worth anything right now, but those
Yeah.
cards would have been worth something. But that was
Hmm.
just a funny little story that I thought of when you mentioned Yu-Gi-Oh. I
Yeah,
think
for
that's
sure.
a really great trend.
Yep.
Funny enough, I misinterpreted this prompt for this one, and I
No, you're
didn't
good.
go the media route
Hmm.
specifically. What I did was I thought of something that I participated in actively,
Sure.
and that
That's fine.
was having a scooter, a Razor scooter. But now I can
Oh
sort of tie
yeah.
it into media by saying, like, we had some really, really cool commercials for the scooter when we
Oh
were
my
younger.
gosh, those were the best commercials.
They made it seem like you were buying a Camaro at the age of 9,
I
you
was gonna
know?
say it made you feel like you had like a Cadillac at like as
Absolutely.
like a kid. That was like the Cadillac of getting around as a kid, you know? I mean, bikes
Absolutely.
bikes were cool, but almost everyone had a bike, and then you show up on a Razor, and the next thing people are like, "All right, let's go."
Oh,
Like you were the cool
absolutely.
kid if you had a razor back in the
You
day.
were the cool kid. And funny enough, so I have two younger brothers. We
Sure.
were in Las Vegas, another Las Vegas story.
Yep.
And I don't know if you're familiar with Las Vegas, but there is a hotel. It's pretty historic and it's actually pretty big. Unfortunately, I'm not sure if it's going to remain open much longer,
Oh
but it's called
no.
Circus Circus. And
Yes, I'm aware of
yep,
Circus Circus. Yeah, big,
yep.
massive. Yeah,
So
that's a historical place.
So for those of you who aren't familiar with Circus Circuits,
Sure.
it's a famous hotel and casino on the strip, and that it has like a carnival like atmosphere. There's an amusement park in it. There are carnival games and whatnot.
Yep.
And my dad, for some reason, is so good at carnival games. And you know the carnival game where you stack up three blocks and you throw a little sack of whatever, a little ball of whatever to
Sure.
knock all
Yeah,
three of
yeah.
them down.
Hmm.
Well, you had to knock all three of them off of the post in order to win a Razor scooter.
Okay.
And as a kid, you can't hit them. So we had our dad, and my dad, I kid you not, won all three of us Razor scooters.
That's cool. That's so dope.
Yep, yep,
Oh man, that's cool. I
yep.
wish I could have won mine. No, I had to save all my money and then I went and bought one eventually.
All the chore money. Oh, but
All the
I
chore
bet
money.
that was even more gratifying.
Oh,
Hard work and then being
mhm.
able to purchase one.
I still would have rather got mine for free though.
That is fair enough. That is, I'm sure it wasn't free to play the game. I'm sure my dad spent a good like $50 to play, but still, for
Oh, well,
three Razor scooters,
hey, shout out to your dad for that though, for real. Yeah,
seriously.
shout out to your dad.
Seriously, seriously. Now, I'll
Absolutely.
go ahead and segue us into the part
Let's
two
do
of
it.
this.
Absolutely. Yep.
We're going to be talking shortly and briefly about our first tech gadgets. Now,
Yes.
Jonathan, why don't you go ahead and start us off by telling us what your first console, computer slash phone was, and telling us like the impact and how that's changed.
All right. I have a couple written down. I hope that's okay.
Please,
I
please.
got a couple here. So, first console, as I mentioned previously, was the Nintendo Wii. Obviously, was the first one I had. Then, eventually, I got a PS2, a PlayStation 2. Just very shortly before PS2, before the PS3 launched. And so the PS2, that was one of my favorite consoles. I got to play a lot of good games on that. I got to play the Spider-Man game from the 2002 movie on that. I think it was called Spider-Man the movie, the game. And I got to play, obviously some the OG Guitar Heroes. That's where I got, into Guitar Hero really was that. And then of course when Legends of Rock came out, that came out also on the on the Wii as well, and obviously most famous one. But yeah, definitely there was that. And then I got big into Halo, as I mentioned, because I had a friend of mine who had Halo, and then one of my cousins also had Halo 3, and so that's where I really got into the Halo lore. And then I think I was around 9, I think I was like 10, 11, or 12, somewhere in there, and my parents got me a 360. And then that's also where I got turned on to my love for Call of Duty as well.
Mm.
And so, yeah, definitely, I had a few consoles in there growing up. And when it comes to phone, my first phone was just a standard Verizon flip phone. Like it wasn't a texting phone or anything. It was just a basic flip phone that you could make calls on, or that you could, you or old school texting where you had to hit the button like 1, 2, 3 to get whatever letters you wanted because they were always grouped into the numbers.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so you had to learn how to go, and it took you like maybe 5 minutes just to write a message.
Oh well,
Um,
that's why the texting back then was just short and concise. You didn't have paragraphs upon paragraphs,
yeah, that's why
unless
you
your
had
fingers you wore them out.
exactly. That's why you had things like instead of saying you wrote the letter U,
Hmm.
or thanks was THX, or stuff like that.
Abbreviations were huge, and people still use them nowadays as if it takes us more than 10 minutes to write a text.
Absolutely, no, 100%. That's definitely one of those things. First computer I had. Oh, first one I think that I owned, like that was my specific computer. It was a MacBook, which is also what I have right now. And I would say after that, going way back, I can't remember the very first computer we owned. I think it was a Dell. I want to say it was a Dell. I can't remember though, but I had the classic AOL login. So yeah, that was the very first. computer that I had. So yeah, no, there's definitely a lot of things that have went on in my lifespan. But yeah, so yeah, what about you? What?
Well, for console, I had mentioned earlier that I had the PS1 with the SpongeBob, the
Right,
Super
right.
Sponge. So that was actually my first console and first game that I owned.
Okay.
And then from there, I got a few games like Cyber Chase, Monsters
Oh, Cyber Chase.
Incorporated.
Okay.
Very media oriented, nothing specific to the PS1,
Yep.
like Grand Theft Auto, things like that. I didn't have, or like Pez or FIFA.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have any of those games at the
Yep.
time. Not until I started collecting more consoles,
Mm-hmm.
which I had a PSP, I had a PS. So I started with the PS1, and then I got a PSP, and then a Nintendo DS,
Okay.
and then a Nintendo Wii,
Yep.
and then a PS3, and then the newer consoles that I have right now.
Yep.
But the first consoles that sort of made up my childhood would have to be the PS1 and the PSP.
Got all for
As for
sure.
a computer, we had a family computer
Yep.
in I think like 2006. We got a family computer,
Hmm.
and I think it was a Dell.
Yep.
We used it mostly for my parents' work and whatnot, but every now and then I would log on to DisneyChannel.com, play some
All right.
Disney games like
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
Lilo and Stitch, a sandwich stacker, things like that.
Okay.
And I didn't get my own personal laptop until I was about 15, which I
Okay.
got a Toshiba. And then
Oh, good.
I didn't get a MacBook until I was like 22.
Yeah, I
20, yeah,
was
22. So,
yeah, I was well into my 20s when I first got my well, actually, no, I was in high school when I got my very first Mac, but when I got the one that I
mm.
have now, I was well into my 20s.
Yeah, so I only have ever had one MacBook, and it's the one that I currently have, and I got it in 2018. So
Oh, very cool. Yeah, yeah.
I was 22, 22, 23. And then for my phone, I actually realized listening back to episode one
Mhm.
that I made a mistake in remembering when I got my first phone. I had mentioned that I'd gotten it in 2000 or in eighth grade. I actually
Sure.
got it in seventh grade.
Okay.
I just misremembered, and it was the equivalent to a flip phone when it comes to the look and the base, except
Yep.
for you just slide it up
Oh,
rather than
okay.
open it. You slide it up,
Oh, cool. Okay.
and
Yeah,
it
yeah.
wasn't the texting keyboard one. It was just the little vertical one that
Yep.
you
Yep.
slide up. Um, and I think that was with like T-Mobile or something like that.
Yep.
And I didn't really play many games on it. I just used to use it to text my parents when I was done with school, when I was done with soccer practice, things like that.
Sure.
But I wanted to quickly ask you, going back to your answers, what all of those first consoles and computers and stuff meant to you.
Definitely, definitely. They definitely meant a lot, I mean, they kind of shaped me in who I am today, I mean, with the Wii, it was something that the whole family could play, I remember hours upon hours of just all my family playing along, and my mom would pick up the mic to sing songs on Guitar Hero and Rock Band. That's probably what formed my love for rock music, aside from having older parents, with all due respect. But there's just so much when it comes to um all of that, and my phone, I got a phone much later, just like you. I wasn't until I think it was like seventh or eighth grade when I got my first flip phone as well. And I knew people who had phones who were much younger than me, and they already had, phones and stuff that they could call on and do whatnot. But I would definitely say they a lot of it shaped who I am, and I think especially even when it comes to things like, hit like, the Xbox, really formed me as somebody who loves Halo, and I still have a group of friends that I play Halo with to this day. I've maintained some connections. It's formed a lot of connections in my life. And so, yeah, I would definitely say that it really just kind of formulated me into the person that I am.
That's great. I actually would say pretty much the same thing. The PlayStation 1 sort of started my love for PlayStation, and ever since then I've
Mhm.
only ever purchased PlayStation.
Mhm.
My family computer wasn't, it wasn't the center of our focus or anything like
Mhm.
that, and we
Same
didn't
here.
actually start playing video games as a family until we got the Wii. which is funny that
Yep.
you mentioned the Wii because that's basically when my family started it. With the older consoles like the early PlayStation and the PSP and whatnot, my parents made it a thing to make it obvious that that was for the children and
Oh
not
yeah.
for the adults, which is funny because in adulthood we still play video games.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So that was something for me to participate with my brothers and
Mhm.
grow closer with them.
That's awesome.
Um, as for my phone, I just used it as a means of communicating to people. I didn't really find any
Yep.
importance until I actually got an iPhone.
Likewise.
Because the iPhone was just revolutionary in
Hmm.
the early 2000s, or it was
Yeah, around.
like early 2000s, from like 2007 to like 2011, 2012. Everyone
Mhm.
was raging about the iPhone 4 or the iPhone 3GS.
Yep, I
And
remember.
the second I got that, I felt like I was high tech.
Oh yeah.
Like I was in a sci-fi movie or something like that.
Well, that's really cool. That's awesome. Yeah, and a lot of too, going kind of going back to, I gotta say, interesting. I just kind of thought now, I think one of the reasons I'm more biased to Xbox is really just because of Halo. Honestly, if it wasn't for Halo, I might actually be more of a Nintendo or a PlayStation guy. I mean, I love Nintendo. I have a Switch now and whatnot, and I play that thing like all the time. But I think Xbox really, because Halo was just that game where it was fun, it was interactive, and even though it was a mature game, it was tame. So it was one of those games you could brag and be like, "I'm playing a mature game," when really it's nothing crazy like Call of Duty or Gears of War or any of those kind of games. But definitely, I would say that Halo is one of the reasons I've stuck with Xbox this long.
Well, rightfully so. That's one of the reasons why I was the most jealous of Xbox owners
Mhm.
in middle school was that, everyone and their mother was coming to class saying, "Oh, like I finished Halo, I did this." And I'm like over here with my PlayStation, like, "What is this that you're talking about?"
343.
Like I felt so out of the loop.
Yeah, 343 Guilty Spark for the true Halo fans. Hey, DM us if you know what that is. Please don't spoil it though, because Ramona has never played Halo, but if you know it, share the love by saying 343 Guilty Spark.
Oh, I'm still out of the club. Gosh dang it.
The only reason I'm not going to spoil it for you, and I don't want you guys to spoil it either, is because you all know how big of a moment that is. So that's all I'm going to say. And then when maybe we'll play it live on stream or something one day. So then,
Yeah,
yeah.
we're still holding off on a LAN party for Jonathan's next birthday, so
Yeah.
hopefully I don't get spoiled before then.
Yes, yes, yes. So guys, please keep that in mind. But anyhow, back to what we were on. So to keep it going, what was the first time, just kind of looking and remembering this, we're talking about computers, a lot, and to kind of piggyback off that, excuse me. What was when do you remember the first time you used the internet, and what did you really use it a lot for back then?
You know what? The internet for me, because I was so young, I had
Mhm.
no interest in asking Google. I had no interest in,
Fair.
IMing people in forums and chats and whatnot. What I was interested in was disneychannel.com,
Hmm.
cartoonnetwork.com, dot com,
100%.
PBS Kids Go.
Same.
Um, I
I was
was
on.
interested in those little mini games or the pinball wizard on the Dell.
Yeah.
That's I can't remember the specific thing I searched for, but I'm sure it had something to do with disneychannel.com or Nickelodeon, just one of those
Hmm.
gaming sites. Or I don't know if you guys remember early 2000s, we had like Kid Pics where you can
Oh
draw
yeah.
on the screen.
100%.
Things like that, I'm sure was the first thing that I looked up. As for YouTube, when
Oh
YouTube
yeah.
came about,
Hmm.
this is the earliest memory I have of YouTube, and it's the first search I did in 2006. Now, in
Okay.
2006, the two biggest things that I had heard of that I remember, I was like in fifth or sixth grade,
Hmm.
was Charlie Bit My Finger
Yes.
and that unicorn one, the Magic
Candy
Charlie
Mountain.
Candy Mountain. Yes, yes,
We
that's what it
found a
is.
map to Candy Mountain, Charlie.
Yep, 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 yep. The Charlie
We're
the Magic
going to
Unicorn.
Candy Mountain. I'm like, yeah,
Oh my
those are
gosh, that
classic. Those are
that takes
classic.
me back.
Yeah.
But knowing that those were the biggest YouTube videos of the time,
Hmm.
I still didn't look them up.
Interesting.
I logged into YouTube.
Yes.
with my 10, 11-year-old self, typing away
Okay.
slowly,
Okay.
10 minutes per word.
Yeah.
Drunk monkeys.
Really?
I don't know why.
That
I
was
don't
your
know.
first YouTube video.
I don't know what inspired me. I don't know why I would. No one told me about drunk monkeys. No one talked about it. It just can't. I was just so overwhelmed with all this
Yeah.
power that YouTube had that
Yeah.
I didn't know what to type in, and I typed in drunk monkeys, and the first
Drunk.
video to pop up was a monkey being given a pina colada.
No.
Yep, yep.
Oh, please don't tell me that was real.
Oh, it was real back when they
Oh
had
man.
zero moderators taking down videos,
No, for
This was
real.
back in the day where you could literally post anything you could imagine
Now for that, you just
on
go to
YouTube.
Twitter.
Exactly,
Yeah,
exactly,
but no,
but
that's crazy.
zero thought behind it. But to this day, every time I open up the YouTube app or YouTube on my computer, I think of drunk monkeys.
Drunk monkey. That's funny.
Yep.
Oh my goodness.
A
I think
fifth grader thinking about drunk monkeys.
for
Who
sure the
knows?
first YouTube video I remember watching was, do you remember the cat playing the piano? Do 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 do
Oh
do do
yeah,
do
that
do
became one of
do.
the biggest memes ever.
Yeah, it became one of the biggest memes. Yeah, that was the very first YouTube video I watched, I remember, because I remember I clicked on it and that was the first thing I clicked on. And then my mom would use it a lot for finding music videos of older music because that's when you start getting things like, Vivo and all these other,
Vivo, yeah.
these partnerships that allowed for, these music videos and such to be put onto YouTube because back in the day, it wasn't regulated like you said, so anyone could post anything regardless of copyright and stuff. Now it's a massive thing and whatnot
Oh yeah.
and
And
such.
I don't know if you knew this. Were you a Google guy the second you started using your computer, or did it take you a while to go? Because I was a Bing person. We were a Bing family before
I was a
Google came out.
Yahoo
Or
person.
you were Yahoo.
I
Okay, so
was Yahoo.
I don't know if Yahoo did the same thing, but Bing had a search engine and it also had a video
Yes.
function that
Yes.
acted like its own version of YouTube.
Yes, I
And
remember.
before YouTube, I used the Bing video finder as
Yup.
YouTube.
hmm No, 100%. I know exactly what you're talking about. Yahoo had a similar feature as well, but Yahoo's would often link off to YouTube videos is what they would do.
Ah, okay.
So instead of having their own video, there'd be a listing of videos there, and then they would be either on YouTube. I think Daily Motion got kicked off at the time, which I'm not going to
Yep.
talk a whole lot about because we all know Daily
Mm.
Motion sucks, um, and whatnot. But I mean, yeah, for YouTube for sure. Yeah, absolutely. I remember, that was the big thing. Yeah, Yahoo was my go-to search engine because at the time, even though Google was a thing, it's not like today where people just like Google.
Well,
They
it's
they
been made into a verb. It's
yeah.
been made into a part of our society that, it's sort of like Kleenex. Kleenex is
Mhm.
a brand. It's not a tissue. It's a brand of tissue. So
Yep.
whenever anyone wants a tissue, they say Kleenex, but it's because of the
Yep.
brand association that they've done.
Yeah, but most people know exactly what you're talking about. You want a facial
Mhm.
tissue,
No,
you know?
exactly. Q-tip,
Exactly.
same thing. You want a
Q-tip,
cotton
yeah.
swab.
You want a cotton swab, but yeah, you want a Q-tip. Exactly. Yeah, yeah. Before
So
we
if you
move,
search something, you Google it. Even if you don't use Google, even if you use
yes.
Safari, you're
Yeah,
Googling it.
absolutely, 100%. I hear you. Yeah, you now you just go into Google and you can type in whatever and find an instant search result, and it's crazy. Like you said, it's a verb now. It's like instead of just saying, "Oh, search on the internet," you're saying, "Hey, Google it." That's the
Google it.
only thing. Yeah. So,
Exactly.
real quick before we move on, I just wanted to make mention since we're talking about tech gadgets, these headphones that I'm using. If you're watching this on YouTube, the headphones that I'm using are actually from the 80s that I'm using
That
right
is
now
awesome.
to listen and so I can hear myself as well as hear my co-host. These are from the 1980s. These belong to my mother. My mother was actually a disc jockey back in the day, and she had like a
Woo-woo.
whole set of these different headphones lying around. And so I was thinking about buying a new set on Black Friday because we were going to do this podcast, but I found them and I asked my mom, I go, can I use these? And she goes, yes. She goes, I think that's even better because it sells the whole vibe of what you're trying to do. So yeah, so these are I'm trying to remember the brand of headphones. They're Pioneers.
Those are beauties.
These are
They are
Pioneers, yeah.
beautiful.
So that's why I look like old school DJ just doing his thing, you know what I'm saying?
It fits the vibe because we're here to rewind.
Absolutely. So what's a better way to rewind than to use some tech in the show itself as well?
Absolutely.
Yep, yep.
Now, let's segue into one of our
Yes.
last segments.
Yep.
Last but not least,
Let's
it's
do it.
our audience firsts.
Let's go.
So we had you guys participate in a listener Q&A over the past week where we over Instagram asked you guys to share with us your first cars.
Yes.
And in this episode we definitely want to engage with you guys by reading some of your guys' responses, because not only do we want to reminisce, we want to help you guys reminisce.
For sure.
With a few of these, we will also be giving some fun facts, some of the older car models that you guys sent in, just so that we leave feeling a little bit smarter as well.
For sure. For sure.
So to start it off, from Amy. Oh, actually, not. Let me start off. My first car was a 2012 Honda CRV. What about you, Jonathan?
Nice. My first car was and is right now a 2007 Saab 93. Now, for some of you listeners out there, you may not know exactly what Saab is. Saab was a Swedish car company that existed from about, I want to say, the 70s or 80s until about 2011 when the company went under. They were bought out by GM in the early 2000s, General Motors, and then unfortunately they just didn't get the love and support that they deserved, and so Saab unfortunately no longer exists. And as much as I love my car, it is a little bit testy at times because with Saab not existing anymore, it's harder, to keep it maintained. But other than that, I love that car, and yeah, that was my first car.
It's a great car. I've been in that
Yep.
car. It's awesome. It's an
Oh,
awesome
it's a
feel.
fun car. Yeah,
It'll take you back. It'll take you back.
for sure.
But on Instagram from Amy, she said her first car was a Chevy S10 that she shared with her
Ooh,
brother.
ooh, that's a
Now,
good
a
one.
little insight on the Chevy S10. It was the first compact truck to offer a V6 engine. Ooh.
Ooh, I actually
Ooh,
didn't
hoo,
know that.
hoo.
I didn't know that. That's
I
really
didn't either.
cool.
That is awesome.
Wow, Amy,
Fun fact Friday.
for sure.
Um, Mark said his first car was a 1968 VW Beetle. That is
That
awesome.
is cool
So
too.
the 1968 VW Beetle was the first year to feature safety upgrades such as headrests and a stronger frame, making a big step in making the iconic car not only unique but a little bit safer. So
For
that's
sure.
some fun facts about that. That's very cool. I love the
Yep.
VW
Oh
Beetle
yeah.
designs.
The
They're
V it's a beauty. It's a beautiful design. It's
so
so
retro.
it's so retro, but it was so game changing too for the time. I mean, you
Oh
see them
yeah.
now everywhere, but
Oh yeah.
it was crazy cool because it's like, nobody's seen a car that little either. You know what I'm saying?
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Stephanie's was a 1990 VW Fox. The 1990 VW Fox was one of the few cars at the time to come with a hatchback design.
Hmm.
It offered versatility. That's actually pretty cool.
That is really cool.
I'll have to look up what these cars look like because all I'm imagining is my Honda CRV. I'm not a car person. John is definitely the car person out
Yeah,
of the both of us.
for sure.
And just to speed it up, that was the last of the fun facts with the cars. Now I'm just going to name off your guys' cars. Royanne said her first car was a 2008 Ford Mustang. Very
Yo,
cool.
that is cool. Ford Mustang. Let's go.
Mm, it's a classic. And then,
Yeah, I don't hear many of those, so that's really cool.
yeah, Jillian said her first car was the 2008 Toyota Yaris. You know what? I had
Mm.
to look this up a few days ago to find
Yeah.
out what it was, and I realized I see them everywhere. So
Oh yeah,
it's funny that I don't know the name.
for sure.
Luis said his first car was a 2014 Nissan Altima. And
Ooh.
you know what? I'm actually going to read this fun fact because it's
Go
actually
ahead.
really interesting.
Yeah, go ahead, read it.
The 2014 Nissan Altima was the first to feature Nissan's innovative zero gravity seats. Zero gravity seats. That's pretty cool.
I didn't know that.
It's
That's really cool.
apparently it's designed to reduce fatigue on long drives. So I'll have to message
Oh,
Luis to see if that was the case.
for sure. I want to know more about that actually. So yeah, keep me in the loop on that.
Right, yeah. And Celine said her first car was a 2013 Lancer Mitsubishi. Very cool.
That is
I
cool.
believe it's called the Lancer Mitsubishi Evolution, I believe.
Okay. Very
Um,
cool. Very cool.
Sergio's first car was a 2012 Chevy Malibu. Very nice.
That is a
And
nice one.
then
That's a really good one.
Tiana's first car was a 2016 Kia Soul. Do you remember those Kia Soul commercials? They were
Oh, of
so
course.
awesome
Of course I remember. Yeah, yeah. I
with the
remember.
with the hamsters
Yep,
and
the
oh
hamsters,
yeah,
and you got them dancing, party rock is in the house
the
tonight.
house
Yeah,
tonight.
I remember watching those on old football games. Yeah, that was
Oh
incredible.
yeah. That's awesome. And then Tessa's first car was a 2007 Honda Accord.
Let's go.
Very cool.
Let's
Very,
go.
very cool. Tyler's first car was a 2010 Honda CRV. Let's go for the CRV Club.
Mm, nice.
And lastly, Rebecca's first car was the 2011 Ford Fusion. Very cool.
That is
Very,
very
very
cool. Yeah,
cool.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. No, that,
No, that's
hey,
awesome.
really good cars, guys. I mean, even the modern ones are
Seriously.
really cool. I mean, cars come in all shapes and sizes, and don't ever feel bad about a car you have as long as it runs and gets you where you need to be. That's all that matters. But no, those are all some sick cars. You guys got some sick cars.
Absolutely. And thank you guys for participating in our
Yes, thank
listener
you.
Q&A.
Absolutely. Yes.
If you would like to be featured in our next episode, we will be doing questionnaires on our Instagram. So keep
Yes.
an eye out for that. So if you would like to be mentioned, or if you have a comment, like I said, you can DM us or email us at. Actually, I don't know the email off the top of my head, but it's on our Instagram bio.
Rewindroompodcast@gmail.com.
There you go. There you go. Rewindroompodcast@gmail.com.
There you go. Yep. So yeah, DM us, email us. We love to hear from you guys, especially if you want to participate in next month's listener Q&A. We'd love to have you guys. Keep it up for sure.
Yeah, and that was actually the listener segment, and we
Sure.
are almost finished, guys. We're
Yep.
almost at the
We're almost
finish
there.
line. But before we do that, we wanted to introduce you to a part of the show that we're going to start implementing throughout the episodes.
Mhm.
We're releasing every first Friday
Yes.
of the month, which
Mhm.
means we're going to be doing Friday fun facts and trivia.
Let's do it.
And they either have to do with the theme, that specific date, they have to do with pretty much anything we want it to be.
Yep.
But we'll start off with fun facts and then we'll end with trivia. And yeah,
Yep. And then we'll be good for the day.
yeah.
For sure.
Um, John, do you want to start us off with a few fun facts?
Yeah, so this fun fact, actually, I am gonna break away. You guys are gonna have to forgive me for this. I am gonna break away a little bit with this being a Friday one. This one's actually more prevalent to today, as in the taping of this episode. But I still got a really cool fun fact. So, as of today, one of the most interesting fun facts I have is on January 14th, 1952, a very popular morning news talk show launched for the first time, as well as making a staple for future morning news segments and shows, and that is the Today Show on NBC.
Bum bum bum.
Bum, bum, bum. Yep, the Today Show launched as of today in 1952. So I think that's really cool because I mean, I don't watch a whole lot of news now just because of what's going on in our world, and sometimes it can just be really depressing. But the Today Show still holds a big part in my heart because the Today Show is like one of the biggest morning talk shows. It's cool to see more New York in the morning. It's cool to see what they do, who they bring on, and oftentimes most of my friends who went into journalism, that was their goal, was to either get on the Today Show or Good Morning America.
That's amazing. Yeah, that's a game changer right there.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, so really that's the only fun fact I have. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to gather that many, so I'm gonna toss it to Ramona to give us some more fun facts as well.
Alrighty, so I have three fun facts for you guys, and I found them pretty fun, so hopefully you guys do as well. So, the first movie ever made is called Round Hay Garden Scene, and it was
Okay.
made in 19 or actually 1888. So well
Wow,
over 130 years ago.
that's crazy.
Imagine that, guys. It's
That's crazy.
considered the first motion picture, and it was actually created by French inventor Louis Le Prince.
Alrighty.
The film itself is less than 3 seconds long,
Hmm.
and it was captured using a kinetoscope, a device
Oh,
created by inventor Louis Le Prince. Now, this is where it gets juicy.
Mm-hmm.
Prince disappeared from the public eye right before Thomas Edison took credit for the invention of the
Wow.
kinetoscope in 1891. So,
Wow.
little fun fact for you, and here's a
That's
part
cool.
two of that fun fact. It's
Okay.
also a known conspiracy in this niche film world that Edison had something to do with Prince's disappearance. So,
Wow.
who
That,
knows?
yeah, who knows? I mean, for all we know, I mean, for years, I remember when I was a kid, everyone was always like, Thomas Edison, one of the greatest
Hmm.
inventors. There's an Arthur episode about Thomas Edison. Then you
Oh,
grow up
yeah.
and you're like,
With Francine?
yeah, yeah, with Francine when she's Thomas Edison. And you're like,
Yep.
then when you grow up, you're like, Francis
Wait, a,
portrayal might have been pretty
something's
on.
fishy.
Yeah, it's kind of
Something's
like,
fishy.
yeah, exactly. It's kind of like, yeah, and then you realize and you're like, holy mackerel, this guy was a tyrant.
History is crazy. Now, on to our
Yep.
second fun fact.
Sure.
The first reality competition show was called Survivor. I'm sure you
Ooh.
guys have all heard of it,
Oh
but
yeah.
it first aired in Sweden back in 1997, so the year that John was born.
Let's go.
And it was actually not released under the name Survivor. It was released under the name Expedition Robinson. So that's a fun fact. A
Oh.
little weird because I have no idea why that is the case.
Same. Yeah, yeah, that
Um,
is.
but it is the first reality TV show, and it first aired in the US May 2000. So in the year 2000,
Wow.
that's when we first saw a reality TV show come into fruition and be aired.
That's crazy.
You think
That
about
is.
reality TV, especially competition TV shows, and it feels like they've been around
Mm.
for centuries. No, not centuries, decades upon decades, and
Yeah,
they're only 2 decades old.
that's
That's
crazy.
pretty crazy. And the last fun fact
Hmm.
is that the first movie in 3D is called The Power of Love. Let us know in the comments or in the DMs if you guys knew any of these fun facts
Yeah.
too, because
Or
these are
leave us a
news to me.
or leave us a comment on YouTube if you're watching on YouTube for sure.
Yes, exactly. Now, The Power of Love was released in 1922, so a little over
Oh.
100 years ago. So about 102, 103 years ago.
So no
And
connection to Back to the Future then.
it,
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. I couldn't help it.
we don't need any more conspiracies, John.
Okay, okay, okay. I'll shut
I'm
up.
kidding. I'm kidding.
No, it's all good.
It was the first 3D feature film, though it's now considered lost, unfortunately, due to no surviving prints.
Oh.
So
Hmm.
we will never be able to watch unless somehow someone saved it and it's in their basement or something. We'll never be able to watch it, which is
Hmm.
unfortunate. And how they made it 3D, we will never know
Oh,
unless we
that's
do
so
research,
sad. That's sad.
unless you read about it.
Yep.
If you want a little information on the film was an experimental movie about
Okay.
a romance between a young couple. So,
Okay.
um, yeah,
That's really cool. That's
yeah.
really cool for sure.
Any of these specifically blow your mind a little more than the others?
They all kind of blew my mind, to be honest with you. A lot
Yeah.
of those I didn't realize. Like obviously I know Survivor, I know what it is. I don't watch a whole lot of it, but I mean I've seen segments, but it's really cool. I didn't realize it had a different name and that it was actually a Swedish show before it made its way overseas. And
Right, right.
hmm
How
so,
crazy is that?
for sure. Sad that the power of love is lost. I mean, I would have
Oh
loved to
yeah.
check that out. Lost films are some of the most tragic and sad. The one that I really want to watch that I really wish still existed. There's a is a 20s movie with Lon Chaney. I can't remember what it was, but it's a very iconic photo of him. He looks like almost like a vampire. If I remember the name of this movie, or if anybody knows the name of this movie, please DM us or let us know. But like, yeah,
It's from the
um,
1920s.
I think it's from the 20s, yeah, because Lon Chaney it's the
Is it the man
father.
who
Lon
laughs?
Chaney, you're saying. I don't know if it was the man who laughs, to be honest with you. It might have been, but I'll have to do some research. If that's the film, I mean, great, but I can't
You'll have
remember
to
it off
let
the
me
top of my
know.
head. Yeah, but that was also a lost movie, and yeah, it was really sad because I love Lon Chaney and his work, and I love his son as well for the Wolfman and everything,
Mm.
for
No,
sure.
yes, very, very fun facts. We're just trying to spice things up for entertainment wise for you
Oh
guys,
yeah, for sure.
and
Absolutely.
also for ourselves too.
You know it. You know
Um,
it.
Now, John, we've hit the part of the show where I'm going to ask you some speed questions, 4 speed questions, and you're going to
Let's
answer
do it.
them. And if you guys want to answer them, comment below or just answer them in your head.
And let us know if you got the answers right as well.
Exactly. Now, I will
Okay.
be asking a
Okay.
question. I'll leave you time to answer, and also leave the audience time to think about it, and
Okay.
then I'll tell you guys the answer. I'm not going to leave you on a cliffhanger.
All right, sounds good.
All right. First question is, now these are related to our theme of the first, so keep that in mind.
Okay.
What was the first animated feature film?
Think about that. Because there's a few of them that I want to say.
Now, I want to tell everyone not to overthink this. Do not overthink these
For sure,
questions.
for sure. I want to say it's a Disney movie because Disney is like a
You are
leading
right about
runner.
that. You are
Okay,
absolutely
so
right
I'm
about
right
that.
about that because I was gonna say it's a Disney. Disney was big in leading that charge, I know for
Hmm.
sure. Is it? Okay, I think I have my answer. Is it Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs?
Ding, ding, ding. You are
Yes.
correct. It
Yes,
was the
I
first full length animated movie and became a massive box office success. So you are
nice.
correct.
I had a feeling it was Snow White because I remember that being like a massive milestone, and every time people talk about Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, like it's huge in when we talk about animated features and whatnot. And I know they're making a remake, which I will not be seeing personally.
The live action remake.
Yes, I personally will
Oh,
not be
yeah.
watching
Well,
that.
that is very controversial on its own.
It is.
So,
We're not going
yeah.
to get into that, but I'm just saying.
No, no, no.
But yeah.
Funny enough, when I was looking up info about this movie, I just watched it.
Yep.
I've watched it since I was a kid, but I rewatched it again like about a week ago, and it's actually
Okay.
very beautiful. And I wanted to know more about it, and apparently, it is deemed as the most beautiful animated movie ever. Now,
I believe it.
I don't know if I would go as far as to say that, but it's up there. And when I rewatched it, holy cannoli, the animation is brilliant. It's
Well,
really brilliant.
well, for its time period, I would say it was because I mean, people hadn't seen anything like that for the time, and
I don't
it's
know.
still,
Well, even to this day, though,
yeah.
even to this day,
And that's what I was getting at. It holds up, is what I'm
it
saying.
holds
Is
up.
the
Yeah.
fact is that some animated films they look so dated and whatnot. Snow White and Seven Dwarfs does not look dated even today.
Nope. 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 Well over 100 years ago, or
It's
actually less than 100 years ago. Sorry about
Yeah,
that. Cannot
we're
do
getting
math
there
quickly.
though. We're getting there.
We're almost there. We're like 80 something years away from it, but
Hmm.
still, how much animation has changed since Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs
Sure,
is astronomical.
it's crazy.
But the fact that they were able to do what they did back in 1937,
Yep,
which would mean that's when it was released. That
yep,
means they started animating back in like 1935,
sure.
probably.
Yeah, absolutely.
Um, but yeah, great job on that. You get brownie points for Rewind Room fun facts.
Heck yeah, let's
Now,
do it.
trivia question number two, a
Okay,
little bit harder, but also don't overthink it.
okay, we'll do.
Who was the first comic superhero?
Ah, first comic book superhero. I want to say, I want to say it's is probably more DC related, I'm guessing, than
That
Marvel.
is correct.
Okay, I had a feeling it was DC because I know even though Marvel and DC kind of launched around the same time, DC obviously had the edge for many years, and then Marvel, of course, came out after and kind of swept the competition. Uh, this is gonna sound so trivial of me, but I'm gonna guess, is it Superman?
Ding, ding, ding. You got
I
your
did
two
it
for two. You're
again.
2 for 2.
Let's go. I'm two for two, baby.
How many of you knew it was Superman?
Yes, how many of you knew it was Superman? I just kind of guessed because I'm like, Superman is like the first like actual like superhero that you can think of a name that's just a man who can fly, has
Yeah.
crazy strength, laser vision, and literally, yeah. So that's kind of what I thought. So okay, cool.
Yeah.
Superman, let's
No.
go.
I love that train of thought that you had. I for one have been collecting comics since I could read,
Yep.
and I knew this, but it's interesting to see the impact that Superman has had since his debut in 1938. Which
Hmm.
I knew this, but I don't know if you guys know this or if you, Jonathan, know this.
Hmm.
But he debuted in not a Superman comic, but in Action Comics #1.
That I did know. Yes.
Yes. So for those of you who are not familiar with this, it is the comic cover of him holding a car.
Hmm. Yep. Absolutely. I actually have a friend that has that comic, and he has it framed.
Well, the original printing goes upwards of I think $5 to $10 million. So if he
Yeah,
has the original printing framed up, just go ahead and send me his address.
for sure. Yeah, I got you.
No,
I got you for sure.
that is awesome. That
I
is
don't know if
awesome.
it's an original, but he just has a copy and he has it framed. So I mean that's all I know.
Yes, well, he was created in 1938 by Siegel
Hmm.
and Joe Shuster, which is
For sure.
very cool. And
That's really
he's
cool.
he basically marked the birth of modern day superhero genres when it
Okay,
comes to film and comics now. Brownie points if you got two for two.
for
Now
sure.
let's see if you can get this one. This one's a little bit tougher. I did not know this one.
Okay.
So if you get this, you get double the brownie points.
Oh, let's go.
What was the first ever YouTube video?
Oh, I know this answer, but I'm gonna give it a minute for, or not a minute. I'm gonna give it a little bit before to let some of the people know. But I know this answer. I know this answer.
All right, everyone, think about it. What was the first ever YouTube video? If it helps, the video was released by the co-founder of YouTube named
Hmm.
Jawed Karim in April or on April 23rd, 2005.
All right. Cool. Cool.
All right, well, the suspense should be over because I'm about to tell you the answer. And the answer is Me at the
Me at the
Zoo.
zoo. Yep.
Yep,
I was.
yep.
Yep. Yeah. I knew that answer. Me at the zoo. Cause yeah, it's like a 10-second video of guy at the zoo, and that was the very first video ever uploaded to YouTube. Yep.
All right. Let us know if you guys got three for three. John has gotten three for three. So bonus points for you, my friend.
Let's
And
go.
the last question for the Friday fun facts and trivia
Hmm.
is what was the first fast food chain in the US? Now, I did not know this either. I've also never
Okay.
been here, so I'll give you some time to think about that.
Oh no. Okay. I think this one I might be wrong on, to be honest with you. I might actually be
First
wrong.
first fast food chain. Come on, everyone, delve into those deep recesses of your mind to think about this.
The fact
I'm
that
sure
you
many of you have gone.
the fact that you've never been there is
It's
gonna throw me off now.
it's a location issue.
Okay.
There isn't one in my town right now. There isn't one in Tucson,
Okay. Well
to
then
my knowledge.
my answer is gonna be wrong. I know that for sure.
Okay.
But let
Well,
me
go ahead and give us an idea of what you're thinking.
originally I was gonna say McDonald's, but I have a feeling you've been to McDonald's. Everybody's been to McDonald's, so
Yeah,
it's not McDonald's. Okay. Because
it is
McDonald's
not
came a little.
McDonald's.
Okay,
And
so
I was
I'm wrong.
surprised to know that this
Yeah, what
answer
is it?
was older than McDonald's. It's actually White Castle. Believe it or
Really?
not, White Castle. Yeah. It was
No
founded back
way. That's
in yeah,
crazy.
it was founded back in 1921 and it was the first fast food chain in the US.
Okay,
How crazy is
then
that?
that would make sense because I've never been to a White Castle either. I mean, I've had the like little White Castle, like
The
those
frozen
little
burgers.
yeah, little frozen burgers, but I've never actually been in a White Castle. Yeah, so that's crazy. So yeah, that shocked me. I didn't know that either.
It shocked me too because it's just such an unassuming fast food chain, you know. You would think it, if you were to tell me McDonald's wasn't, if anything, I'd probably think oh Burger King or something like
Oh
that,
yeah,
something very, you know,
I thought
but White
McDonald's.
Castle. Yeah, no, exactly, exactly.
Yeah, that's
But yeah,
crazy.
let us know if you got all four correct.
Yes,
And
please do.
if that's the case, then you get a virtual pat on the back from the both of us
Heck
because
yeah,
that is
absolutely,
awesome. And actually,
absolutely,
that concludes our exploring firsts and fun fact segment of the day. And I will
absolutely.
leave it to you, John, to wrap up.
All right, sounds good. So before I wrap up the show and go ahead and end it, one of my friends who actually wishes to remain anonymous, so we're going to respect that, has a question for the both of us in regards to something we mentioned in our pilot episode. So if you're cool, I'm going to ask that question real quick. I got it on my phone right here.
Please do.
So the question is, it goes like this. Hey guys, really enjoying the podcast so far. Your pilot was very engaging and allowed me to see how much love you guys have for nostalgia. I appreciate that. So
Yes,
here's the
much
question.
appreciated.
So here's the question. I want to ask you a question about two very popular 2000s movie trilogies. You both mentioned being massive fans of the Sam Raimi Spider-Man films, which I happen to be a massive fan of those movies as well. Hey, win for that. Those are great movies. Amazing movies. Um, However, I am also a fan of the Christopher Nolan Batman trilogy, which was released around the same time, with both of those being two of the most realistic and cinematic superhero trilogies of their time, and with both trilogies having the second film being seen as the superior film. Which trilogy do you both feel is superior? Sam Raimi's Spider-Man trilogy or Christopher Nolan's Dark Knight trilogy?
Oh, that's a fantastic and
That's a really good
trivial question
question.
right there.
That's a
Holy
hard one.
cannoli.
That is
Well, you know
hard.
what? While I gather my thoughts, I want to listen to your answer, Jonathan.
Okay, sounds good. No worries. This is a tough one because I agree with what he said. They were both big, they were both cinematic, they both were very realistic, even though I will say Sam Raimi's definitely felt like you were watching a comic book movie, but Christopher Nolan's Batman actually felt like you were watching like a crime movie. It felt like you were watching something that was really happening and whatnot. And this is a tough one because he also brings up the point where he says, hey, both of the sequels are considered the best because obviously people say Spider-Man 2 is the best and people say The Dark Knight is the best. Oh, this is so hard, honestly, because I love. Here's the thing. I got to go with Sam Raimi's Spider-Man trilogy, and here's why. Those were the films I grew up with. Peter Parker was a big role model for me because I was not popular when I was young. I was the loner. I didn't really have a lot of friends, and Peter Parker was kind of that person I could relate to. And especially with how Tobey Maguire portrayed Spider-Man, you really felt like, hey, this is me, and whatnot. And so I would have to say the Spider-Man. Now, that doesn't also mean, though, I love Christopher Nolan's Batman trilogy. And to tell you the truth, Dark Knight is easily one of my all-time favorite movies. With Heath Ledger's performance as the Joker and with just how Nolan made that trilogy feel so realistic while also making it a comic book film. So I got to give hats off to both, but I got to go Sam Raimi's Spider-Man trilogy.
You know what? I think that you stole the words from me because at the end of the day, you're comparing two films
Mhm.
that changed the game in their own respect
Yes.
for comic book movies.
Yep. Absolutely.
And the reason I say that is because Spider-Man was pretty much the first live action movie that set off Marvel Studios, which is what we were
Yes.
talking about last episode.
Hmm.
But Christopher Nolan's rendition of the Batman was the first time we see Batman outside of his quirky, Tim Burton-esque
Yep.
Gotham slash, Val Kilmer Batman, Michael Keaton Batman. Like it
Mhm.
became serious.
Yes.
Before we had seen him in the 1960s show as Adam West's,
Hmm.
funny, uh, good spirited vigilante that was working with the cops.
Or Kevin
And then you
Conroy's animated series.
absolutely that well, the animated series is the darkest we see Batman up until we get Nolan's.
Yes.
And then it gets even more dark with Batman Beyond. But
Yep.
then you get Tim Burton, and then you get the
Mhm.
Val Kilmer series, the
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 Joel
Forever and
Schumacher
the
ones. Yeah.
exactly. And those are whimsical. They're very whimsical. They're dark,
Mhm.
but they're whimsical. They're
Yes.
very they follow the aesthetic and the writing appeal of the auteur, which is Burton. And as you were saying,
Hmm.
now, Nolan is such a specific director, and he has such
He
a
is.
way of encapsulating audiences and realizing his vision that he just changed the game when it came to how we see comic books.
Yes.
That being said, both of them serve purposes for
Yes.
whatever audience you're going for.
Sure.
Because, like myself, or like you, myself, I related so much to Peter Parker in
Hmm.
Tobey Maguire's rendition
Yep.
that I can't escape the fact that that movie changed my life.
Same.
That
Yeah.
trilogy changed my life.
Hmm.
Dark Knight came at a time in my life where I already had some sort of identity. I
Yeah.
already, so it's just a good movie. It's a great movie.
Oh yeah.
But if you grew up as a young kid or even as a teen or an adult
Mhm.
watching these Raimi films and watching Tobey Maguire and Peter Parker progress to what he is in that trilogy,
Yep.
i.e., a villain by the end of the third,
Absolutely.
you start to think, oh well, these movies molded a lot of people's childhoods. Whereas I think Dark Knight and Batman Begins and Dark Knight Rises are all part of this huge epic that
Yeah.
Nolan was trying to tell.
Oh yeah, for
And
sure.
you have to sort of watch all of them to appreciate the entire world that Nolan was trying to create.
That is true.
Whereas Spider-Man, each individual film is an epic about Peter Parker and
Yeah.
not necessarily about Bruce Wayne or Gotham
Yep.
or Spider-Man's case, New York.
Hmm.
You know, it's not about that. It's about Peter evolving as a human. And I think that because we were the outcasts growing up as
Hmm.
kids, we were, you know, the people who had trouble connecting with people compared to other kids, you know, we're
Hmm.
obviously going to gear towards something that we relate to. So
Hmm.
to make a long long answer long,
You're good.
but to round
Yeah.
it out, I would say Spider-Man
Yep.
because of the impact he had on my character.
Likewise.
That's
Absolutely.
not to say that the Nolan trilogy isn't brilliant. That's
Oh
not
my
to say that.
gosh.
It's just
Yeah.
nostalgia is taking the helm on this.
Absolutely. I agree with you 100%. Tobey Maguire as Spider-Man, even though a lot of people can say what they want to say about him, he nailed Peter Parker. And oh, my light just died. Guys, if you see my light was right there, so I'm sorry, we're gonna end this kind of dark, but yeah,
It
my
is
my
now
light was
nighttime.
it is now nighttime, yes. My light just went out on me. Oh, I'm so disappointed, but you know what? It is what it is.
You still look great. You still look
Oh,
fantastic.
I appreciate it. I appreciate it 100%. Well, anyways, um, yeah, I think that was a great question. But yeah, to round it
Seriously,
out,
great question.
that was a really great question. And feel free to ask us stuff like that as well because we're here
Yeah.
for it. We're here to answer it. We're here for all of it.
And
But
if you'd like
anyway,
to answer to that specific question, please let
absolutely.
us know. What
Yeah.
trilogy do you guys prefer?
Yeah,
Do
what
you
trilogy do
prefer
you
the
guys prefer?
Christopher Nolan?
Mhm. Yo, you might have to make that a poll on the Instagram.
I
That
will.
that
I
yeah, make
absolutely will.
make that a poll for sure. Yeah, yeah. We gotta make that a poll. We gotta pin that for sure. So
Yeah. And if you
anyhow,
guys are not following us right now on Instagram, definitely do that because that is where we get the most one-on-one interaction with you guys.
follow us at Rewind We're in Podcast, guys. Yep.
Hmm.
Absolutely. Well, to round out this episode, I think we did really good. We got a lot that we were able to cover. We covered a lot of firsts. We covered a lot of what a lot of um our personal firsts as well as some of your firsts. And now I think you guys can get kind of a sense of how firsts really impact us in the way of nostalgia, and in the way of how nostalgia is not just something you can define just outright, but it's something that's meaningful to the person and really takes on a meaning when you get it to the person, such as when you saw we were talking about, some of our first movies, some of our first things that we had, and what made it so special to us and why now it's so nostalgic. So definitely, definitely really good. And I thought it was awesome that we got to hear from you guys as well, because now you guys get to join the conversation and really get a deep meaning of what nostalgia is also for you guys as well. So that's really awesome. We're episodes from here out, as Ramona said earlier, will be posted on the first Friday of each month. So this episode will probably debut on February 7th of 2025, and then from here out, just every first Friday of every month, expect a new episode. So we're gonna stay with that for a bit, but we are hoping one day to get bi-weekly and then maybe even weekly, if we can, and just keep upping the ante as much as we can. Please follow us on wherever you get your podcasts. We are on Spotify, we are on Apple, we are on Amazon Music, we're even on Audible actually. So we're on a lot of different forms, guys. And if you guys don't have any of those or prefer to see us as you see us now, feel free to go over to YouTube and you can watch this episode and you can actually see us in where we are, and you actually can feel a little bit more interactive. Or if you want to listen on a podcast form and come watch it, by all means, we're all here for it. And we love you guys. We thank you for tuning into this episode of Rewind Room. We thank you so much for just all the support you guys have given us since day one, and we just look forward to more bigger and better things on this show for sure. And
Absolutely. I just
yeah,
wanted to thank
yeah, go ahead.
everyone for helping us revisit these moments that have brought us so much joy.
Hmm.
And I think Rewind Room is a great time for us to unwind,
Hmm.
talk, chat, and also reflect
Yep,
on the moments that made us us and the people around us in society. And it's just a great thing. It's nostalgia is very important, especially when it comes to history. We don't want it to repeat itself sometimes, and
absolutely.
sometimes we do.
Absolutely. You know, there are moments out there that are kind of bad that we want to learn from, not to repeat, but then there's moments like these where, hey, I'll keep it in my life the rest of my life. With that, guys, thank you so much for listening. Thank you all so much for being here. My name is John,
And I'm Ramona.
and we will catch you on the rewind. Anyhow, guys, we thank you so much for listening, and yeah, we'll see you later. All right, my friend, thank you for joining me again, and I'm really excited to see where this show goes. And yeah, so take care, my friend.
Thank you guys, and we will catch you on the rewind.
Catch you on the rewind. All right, see you guys.